Today's video is sponsored by 12, featuring a dozen original and unexpected short stories about passion and legacy, and Dropping the Belt, an exciting writing experiment featuring 3 anonymous ghostwriters and 1 hilarious professional wrestling story. Check out these 2 new books from author David Farrell, available at Amazon now.
Welcome to Pod Me If You Can. Today's film is the 2002 independent film Gerry, starring Casey Affleck and Matt Damon.
Pardon Me If You Can. Movie reviews.
2 men that call each other Gerry pull over in the desert to look at a thing and take some wrong turns on a trail and then find themselves quite lost. Will they make it out of the desert alive? The film was directed by Gus Van Sant, and it's part of his 3 films of Death trilogy. Look, Gerry is an interesting one, because it's the kind of film that really divides audiences. You could find metaphors in this film, like when somebody climbs up to a rock, whether or not they have their friends there to help them get out of a dangerous situation. You could look at this and say that this is 2 personalities going into the desert, of which only one could emerge. I feel like Gerry, you will either hate this movie or love it. There really is no middle ground. The film is slow. It is the definition of a slow burn. The pacing of this film is tedious at times. There are 100 shots in this movie, and it goes for 100 minutes, which means that the average shot goes for 60 seconds. However, there are shots that go for over 3 minutes, and it's just them trudging along with the camera. Matt Damon and Casey Affleck are credited as co-writers here, but honestly, the dialogue feels entirely improvised, and really the co-writing credit is really just a nominal thing. The film has like an over $3 million budget, $3.5 million. The problem here is that it feels like it could have been shot in a weekend as an independent film for no budget. I don't know how much the actors were paid, but it was probably too much in the scheme of things. They call each other Gerry, but they also refer to things as jerrying it up. Like, oh, we took too many Gerrys back there, or oh, we jerried that turn, you jerried the landing, you jerried the meetup. They casually refer to things that are bad as jerrying. Referring to each other as Gerry really means that they're both bad as well. It's a term, apparently, that Ben Affleck and Matt Damon had come up with prior to the working on the film, as something they just threw around. I don't know if that helped get this writing credit on the cards. There's sort of a haunting experience here to be had. People getting lost in the desert and feeling like, this is the end for them. It's sort of like watching something just fall out of sight until you can't see it anymore into the distance, like dropping a coin or something into the Grand Canyon. While I really wanted to like the film, this is actually the second time I've watched it, and it felt even more tedious the second time around. I felt like maybe I was trying to put meaning onto shots and put meaning onto things that there was no meaning for. I feel like in a way we're being trolled by the filmmakers, and they're like, let's see if this counts as cinema, If you can't necessarily assign meaning to things, it becomes a meaningless experience because you're watching this film and saying, well, what is this? It is based on a real situation where 2 people were lost in the desert and only one of them came out. And as I said, it's part of his Death trilogy because he also did Last Days, based on the Kurt Cobain kind of movie, and Elephant, based on school shootings. And he's taken real events in each situation and tried to form a kind of narrative around them. Unfortunately, there is so little to the film. There are long periods of time where nobody speaks. Nobody speaks for almost 8 minutes at the beginning. And there's a lot of shots of clouds and things that don't necessarily matter. It's like a weird kind of meditation. This is almost the definition of experimental cinema. And I feel like it is ultimately very divisive. You're going to enjoy Gerry or you're really not. And probably the people that'll be drawn to this are people that like Matt Damon, who are completionists that want to watch every one of his movies. You could give this one a miss. It's absolutely frustrating at times because you want more from it. It's like non-narrative cinema. I'd love for people to jump into the comments field and let me know what you thought. Is this the kind of movie that people love or hate? That's basically what I'm going for. And why? Tell us why you love this movie, why you hate this movie. This feels like people will put it on, get bored, switch it off, or fast forward. You'd never watch Gerry if it didn't have Matt Damon or Casey Affleck, and you wouldn't watch it if it wasn't directed by Gus Van Sant. It has redeeming features there. But honestly, the uninteresting conversations they have at the campfire, and the arguments they have when they're yelling at each other in the desert, and the inability they have to get their way out of trouble, it's infuriating at times. I wasn't a fan of the film, and I don't want to watch it again. The second time through, and I feel like this will be most people's reaction, they're going to have a second screen going. They're going to want to check their phone. Your eye wants to be drawn to something other than what you're watching on the screen, because there is so little to it. So few words, so few activities. Most of this film is walking. Tell us what you think in the comments, and whether you loved or hated Gerry, or if you'll avoid it based after this review. And subscribe to our YouTube channel, where you can find tons of obscure films, and each one has somebody famous in it.
Thanks for watching. If you like what you see, please hit the subscribe button. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Check out our podcast at www.podmeifyoucan.com.